What's up, everybody? Chris Fluke here. This is the Chris and Friends podcast. But as you can see, today, I have no friends. I'm hanging out by myself. A little bit of solitude here. I dropped Maurice off at the airport this morning, 3:30 a.m. We got up and we got out. And my daughter's enjoying some time with her grandparents. So this is what we have here. Every fifth episode, I'm thinking about doing a recap, right? I'm going to talk about the 5 guests that I've had on. The lessons that I've learned from them. I'm going to talk about upcoming podcast episodes. I'm going to touch on something that I've been writing on. And lastly, I'm going to beg each and every one of you to go to YouTube, subscribe to my channel, to share this stuff with others. I'm trying to expand this podcast into something bigger so that we can make an impact kind of in the local community, right? But then branch out into a bigger area and hopefully try to make this world a little bit of a better place. And lastly, if you have any suggestions for guests, please feel free to send them my way. Now, a few days ago, this episode might not be happening. I'm going out for a run, right? I'm a physical education teacher. I just wrapped up with my last class of the day. It's a group of, it's a mixed class, first and second graders. You know, I got about 25 minutes until I have a work call with my buddy Brad. So I'm like, you know what? I'm leaving everything out. I am not cleaning up. I'm going to go hit the road right now. I'm going to go run. When I get back, when I'm on the phone, I could clean up all my phys ed stuff. I take my phone with me and I decide I'm just going to push and go as far and as long as I can until that phone rings, right? So I decide I'm going to hit this loop, right? I run an X amount of blocks, say 5 blocks up, and then just kind of turn and come back and then continue that loop around, just around this little neighborhood around the school where I work. So I hit one lap about 15 to 20 minutes in. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start lap number 2 here. And as I'm going to hit that second loop, my left foot catches something on the sidewalk and I am heading fast towards the ground. I am about to face plant, right? So my left foot catches it. I'm going to the ground. Gravity's going to win, but my right foot just so happens to catch me, right? It prevents me from falling and smashing my face on the ground. That is important, man. And after that big jolt into my body, dude, everything snapped. I'm like, my neck, my back felt funky, right? But my right foot saved the day, right? And when I think about a conversation I had years ago with a coach, they always talked about continuing to do agility training and stuff like that into adulthood. Because, as a youngster, right, what is a stumble in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, it might end up turning into a fall in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? Because once you trip on something, right, say there's a carpet that's elevated, right, you trip on that carpet, if you don't have that speed, if you don't have the ability to fire that other leg, right, and react appropriately to catch yourself, you're going to fall, okay? So what could we do? You could do some basic agility drills. You could look stuff up online. Just to prevent that, find a coach in the area, right? But it's important for us to continue to be able to move our feet fast, because if I didn't do some of this stuff, who knows? I might not have been able to catch myself. I could have taken a tumble. I could have face planted right there on the sidewalk, right outside a cemetery, man, where somebody would have walked by and they would have had to scrape me up, So that almost happened this week. A little scary. It's a good wake-up call though, right? Continue to take care of yourself. Continue to work on certain qualities in the hopes that we could stay injury-free for as long as humanly possible. Now, when we do a recap of these episodes, I'm starting off with like I said in that first episode, my number one friend, right? Marisa, whatever. I'm trying to think of all of these great dynamic duos other than the fact that she's just the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, right? The mother of my child. She's an incredible person. And what I learned from her each and every day, and what I learned from her in that podcast episode that we did, right? Episode number 1 was this, man. When you believe in someone or something, you fight for it, right? When there's belief in a product, like we partnered with a company. We sell these supplements, right? We work and we work with our goal to be to help as many people as possible. She believes in the product, and because of that, she's able to share that belief and to really get passionate about what is going on, right? And she does a wonderful job there. When it comes to believing in a health, we shared about our daughter, right? Our daughter had some health struggles when she was 1. She believed in a certain way to help her heal and recover, and she fought for it, man. She didn't say no for an answer, and she was a great advocate. She researched, she was tirelessly, right? She was on the computer looking stuff up all the time as we try to navigate this health situation for our daughter. And lastly, when she believes in someone, I am the fortunate one that for some odd reason she believes in me, right? And at all of these times in my life when I try to, sabotage stuff or, just destroy whatever's going on in the world, she's there to snap me out of it and be like, not literally smack me out of it, but she kind of gets my head out of my rear end at times, and I need that, okay? Great positive influence. When you believe in something or someone, right, fight for it and don't quit. That is what I learned from you, Marisa. Darren Mazeppa, my new friend, right? I just met him a few months ago, again, through this company that we work with, right? Chiropractor out of the Emmaus area. Nice guy. We always have a great conversation, right? We're always trying to, I think he's always looking for the good in people. He's always looking to improve people. And I like that about him, man. And he's always so positive. In our episode, he just talked about feeling that energy, right? It's got to be that feel-good energy. You want people that are going to bring you up and not bring you down. So that's important. The second thing that I took, that I just applied to a conversation we had over the weekend, man. We had one of these open houses, and boy, it got emotional. We did the last two. People have broken down. They shared so much about their personal life. They started breaking down. And what it came down to is that there's 3 T's that Darren learned from a mentor that he shared, that mentor shared with him, and then what he shared with me, and now I'm sharing it with whoever will listen to me, right? So that's how that thing compounds and it blows up, right? You have one person with this great idea. They share it with somebody. That person believes in it, right? Like I was saying about Marisa, when you believe in the idea, you then share it with others. And why do you share it with others? Because you want others to feel that and feel good too, right? You want others to feel better about what's going on in the world. So the 3 T's are our thoughts, the traumas that may have happened in our life, and then the toxins, right? We control our thoughts, okay? We control our thoughts. And that's that, really. All right, it's what we put in our mind each and every day matters, right? If we think we're going to get sick, if we think the world's out to get us, if we think things are going to go bad, there's a good chance things aren't going to go bad. Now, I'm not saying we can't say, hey, I think I'm going to think this into existence. I will be the president. I will be a millionaire. I will be the greatest business owner. If you don't take the steps to actually do that, it's not going to happen, right? So there's a little bit more to it than just thinking it, right? There's some action steps behind it. So we can't just look at ourselves and be like, I'm going to do it, and not really believe it, right? You have to have some sort of, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say it in a passionate way and actually believe what you're saying. You can't just say it. You can't speak things into existence, but what you think does matter, okay? If you're in a stressed state all the time, you're going to be more susceptible to, illness, things like that, right? Immune system gets compromised when you're in a stressed state. So if you're stressed because of what is in your mind, you might end up getting physically ill, okay? Things of that nature. Be mindful of what you think of. Number 2, traumas, right? We can't control the trauma that happens in our life, right? But like I'm going to get to with another guest, my friend Wes, who he taught me this, man. He said you can't let things that happen in the past, you can't change what happened in the past, but you can change its meaning. Okay? So when we have traumas, they could totally devastate us, okay? But then there's also the flip side of that, right? There's a lot of great people that have experienced atrocities, right? And very harsh things. And they kind of use those experiences to kind of elevate them to where they are today, right? So they reframed it, right? They didn't view it as a negative idea. They viewed it as something that happened to them, and they're not going to let that specific event ruin the rest of their life. I always think about Elizabeth Smart. If you remember, this young girl got kidnapped in Utah, right? And then she came out and she talked about her experience. She wrote a book about it, and she went on a speaking tour because she didn't want to let what happened to her destroy her own life, right? But she also didn't want that, if that happened to others, right? If there's other people in the country or in the world that has happened to, she wanted to be a voice and just say, it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to be open, okay? It's okay to share, because it's hard when you feel voiceless, right? And if others are out there and they're going to lend you an ear, right? If they're going to give you an opportunity to share, that allows for some healing to occur, right? So with the trauma part of things, remember, we have to redefine the event. We have to put a new meaning on it, okay? We can't let it destroy our future. Things happen in the past, but it's time for us to heal. It's time for us to recover. And in order to do that, we need to share. We need to be open. And we need to accept what happened and get ready to move. Lastly, toxins. It could be literally toxins that we consume orally, or it could be toxins that we experience in relationships in our life, right? Negative relationships. It could be the toxins that we might see on TV. I mean, do we really need more serial killer shows? Do we really need to see all that terrible stuff in the news each and every day? Is there ever an uplifting story out there, right? All of these things you could consider to be toxins, and it's things that go in, whether it's in your ears or in your mouth, basically, right? If it's negative and it's going to pull you down, let's try to remove them from our system, okay? That was our second guest. Guest number 3, Tegan Kane, an old childhood friend, man. He showed up here wearing his old school jacket that I had probably 25 years ago. And what he's about to embark on is a take on the Appalachian Trail, right? And that's a big goal. But when you're trying to accomplish a big goal, you have to break it down into chunks. And what Tegan taught me was this: you never take a zero. And what that means is every morning you wake up and you take a step forward on that trail. And that trail could be a metaphor for life as well. Every day, it doesn't have to be a lot, but you gotta chip away at something, right? You gotta work towards something. You gotta work on becoming, better at this or that, or work on a relationship, or work on, that project that you've been putting off forever, right? Never take a zero. Always keep moving forward. And now I brought up Wesley already, but I'm going to bring up something else that he taught me, man. The past doesn't define your future. I kind of touched on that earlier, right? We can't let past events, dictate who we become. The second thing I really liked is you can't be a public success, but a private failure, right? Don't just put it out there about how wonderful things are, right? I have my Instagram page, and it could be me doing all this cool stuff and traveling, big smiles with the family. But then behind closed doors, I treat my family awful, or, I had to borrow money, or somebody had to pay for that trip, or somebody had, or I just kind of taken that thing, right? I'm taking pictures in all these spots. Maybe I'm not even supposed to be there, but I did it anyway, just so I could look cool on the InstaWebs, right? Don't treat your spouse, right, your significant other, like crap, okay? In private, but then publicly you have the Valentine's Day thing going on where you're like, this is the best person in my life, yada, 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 right? Don't be what's viewed as a public success, and I'm putting that in quotes, but a private failure. When you look at yourself in the mirror at night, are you proud of the person that you see, or do you know that that person is a phony? Have a little self-awareness, boys and girls. Next, my fifth guest was Megan O'Brien During. Haven't seen her in years. Always enjoyed talking to her. She's super unique, super driven, right? I used to see this lady training for marathons, and I think she's got something mentally that could just drive her forward, right? No matter what is thrown her way, she's going to say kind of, F it, I'm going to grit my teeth and get through it. Now, because of that, it has come back to bite her in the butt at times with things like injuries and other health concerns or issues over time. But unfortunately, it's like that one thing when you're a high-level athlete. You look at Michael Jordan or Tom Brady, those individuals are so hyper competitive. I'm like, I don't think I would want that in my life, right? Where it's like you can't even go play a game of, you can't even play your kid in like badminton without getting, where you want to destroy them, right? I don't like that side of things, and I like having the ability to kind of turn it off, right? But because of that, I wasn't able to drive myself athletically to high levels. So, there's always give and take, right? I guess that's a part of life. When you're high achievers, there's going to be some imbalances, I think, in life. Now, back to Megan. She told me this. I asked her specifically, I have kids that want to, in some of the classes, or they come to the gym, they want to be accepted into a group, right? And I was like, what do I tell somebody, right? They want to go and talk. They have some social anxiety. They don't know what to do. Number one, you have to understand that you're not always going to be accepted by a group, okay? Be yourself. Be authentic. Eventually, you're going to find your people, right? Number two, you have to identify what your core values are, right? If you want to do X, Y, and Z, but that group over there that you think you want to hang out with doesn't jive with those, that doesn't fit their routine, then that's not the people you want to hang out with, no matter how cool you think that those people are, right? Because if you change who you are, if you change your core values to fit into a group, two things are going to happen. Number one, you're not living an authentic life, right? And that, you're going to know that. Remember what I said when you look at yourself in the mirror at night? You're going to be a public success, but a private failure. You're not going to be happy with what you see. You're not going to be happy with the behaviors you do because it doesn't align with your true core values, okay? That's number one. Number two, the dust always settles. Your true self is going to come out, and that group over there is going to realize who you really are, and then they might ostracize you from the group, and then things might even get worse, all right? So we have to remember, you're not always going to be accepted. Define what your core values are, and then stay true to those values, okay? How about that? Those are the first 5 that I've had. I've learned so much with speaking with these people. I cannot wait for my future episodes. We're going to have on, a kid that I used to coach in high school, Stephen Rose. He's now following my path for some odd reason. I'm just kidding. I was a coach of his. He had another good mentor when he was in high school that was in the strength and conditioning world. We talked to him about it, and he just ended up following that path because he had an interest, he had a passion, he had a desire to kind of improve the health and livelihood of some of these kids, right? These athletes that we work with, and he's on that path. So Stephen Rose is going to be on. I'm going to be doing a round 2 with Marisa. We're going to try to get together each month and tackle some things that we've been experiencing in our work, in our lives, as parents, whatever it may be. We've got bodybuilding champions, physical therapists, CrossFit owners, wrestling coaches, real estate. I was going to say a real estate mogul, but a real estate professional that's getting it done locally, right? Who's a great guy. Health coaches, all of this stuff's coming on. Again, if you have some suggestions, let me know. Lastly, I got one more thing, maybe 2 more things. We'll see how this thing goes here. I wrote an article, man. I wrote an article. Can you believe it? On the 13th of February, you go to chrisflick.net and you look at this thing. It says coffee and coping with anxiety. I was talking to a friend at our daughter's school one day. I'm drinking an afternoon cup of coffee, right? Hopefully Marisa's not listening to this because she's always on me about it. But I got my afternoon cup of coffee going. Guy walks up, says, "Hey, man, I can't have that anymore." I'm like, "Why?" He shares a little bit of a health thing. We get our kids, we go home. Next time I see him, I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" Nothing. He goes, "What are you learning about in health?" I'm like, today was a big thing. We were really focusing on ways to manage our anxiety. And he jokingly laughed and he was like, "Ha ha ha, maybe I should join that class next time." And I was like, funny, funny, funny. And then we started talking about it, right? And what we started to share was that if we consume a lot of caffeine, sometimes it lay down and you feel your heart pumping, right? Or sometimes you're feeling stressed, you're feeling a little anxious, you got too much on your plate. That caffeine that you're having jacks your blood pressure up a little bit more. It could be anywhere between 3 and 13 points on that systolic blood pressure rating, right? And when you have some anxious feelings, when you're feeling a little bit stressed, that is one thing that you don't want to do is further spike that, right? You might feel some heart palpitations. I talked to other people about it. Dizziness, what else could happen? Increased heart rate, just things of that nature, right? Not being able to breathe right. Sometimes I feel myself breathing in the chest, right? Chest breathing is the shoulders lift up on the inhale. You don't want that. You want to blast the air. Diaphragm, all right? You want to move that diaphragm. You want your belly to expand, not the shoulders to lift every time you take in a breath of air, right? These are some of the things I talked about with the kids. And also, I was trying to think about that in my own life. Am I practicing what I preach? Am I doing what I need to do? So as I tried to refocus everything, I just put it down. I put it out there. I just came up with maybe 7 or 6 options here for us to really focus on. If you're feeling some stress, you're feeling some anxiety, number 1, write down some things that you're grateful for. This is another thing I got from Darren, who I mentioned previously. Write down 3 great things that happened to you in the last year. Write down 3 great things that happened to you in the last month, the last week, and then today. 3 great things that happened today. The more time you spend thinking about positive things, the less time you spend in an anxious state, all right? So if you do this exercise over the course of a week, let's say you do it 12 times, and each time it takes you 5 minutes. That's 1 hour. That's 60 minutes, okay? So that's 1 hour that week that you're less anxious, right? That you have less anxiety. At the end of the year, that's 52 hours of anxiousness and anxiety removed from your life. That could work wonders for your long-term health, especially if you extrapolate that over the course of many years. 52 hours, okay? Think about that. That's over 2 days. Go for a walk and spend some time outside. We just got hammered with 12 inches of snow. I can't believe it. But still try to get out there. Get outside and move some snow around. 2 hours in the snow yesterday, shoveling, using our tractor to move snow, playing with our daughter, dragging her through the yard, man. Like I was treating her as if she was a sled and I was just sprinting down the yard. She was loving it. I was getting some exercise. Get outside, exercise, get the heart rate going a little bit, okay? And then when you're done with that, think about how you feel. All right, if you're feeling good, then you know this is a behavior that I should reinforce and do again further. Breathe. I already mentioned it once, right? One strategy that I like with breathing, obviously, you don't want to see your shoulders rise. Remember, we're pumping the air right into that belly of ours, right? So blow that thing up, all right? Lastly, I like to count. I learned this in a yoga class, 7, 8 years ago, Eastern yoga. And it was this. It was when you inhale, you say 1, okay? So you inhale is 1. When you exhale, that becomes 2. Inhale 3, exhale 4. So you just say this quietly in your mind. Now, what does that do is 1, you're taking these deep breaths, which is great. Number 2, it because you're counting, you're not really thinking about all of those anxious thoughts that are going on in your mind, okay? So count the inhale as 1, the exhale as 2. Count as far as you can. Let's say you get up to 13 the first time. Fine. Start back at 1. Try to get higher than the number 13, okay? Maybe you get into the 20s. Again, restart. Eventually, you're going to be 5 to 10 minutes into it, and you're going to be feeling better. One thing I also do is I prop my feet up sometimes, and I do that, and I put my hands on my belly so I could feel the air kind of fill. Okay, why do I prop my feet up? I'm on my feet a lot. Although blood kind of rushes to your lower body when you're standing, when you elevate the feet, it almost recirculates, it redistributes where that blood is kind of back down, right? We have gravity working on, and then it pumps that, if you have some inflammation in the lower body, it ends up circulating that throughout the bloodstream a little bit. It spreads it out kind of almost through the body, right? It doesn't pool up in your lower body when you stand up. All of that blood rushes down there, right? All of that inflammation, that swelling could rush to the legs. When you elevate the feet, it kind of then takes that pooling inflammation, say, and starts to distribute it evenly kind of throughout the body. And next thing you know, you wake up and you're feeling energized. At least I do. Sleep. We got to sleep, man. If we're going to get rid of stress and anxiety, this is what we need to do. 9 hours before you have to wake up. That's shutdown time, right? If you get up at 6 a.m., guess what? 9 p.m. the previous night, I need to get ready for bed, okay? I need to stop watching stuff. I need to stop messing around on my phone. I need to turn the lights down. I need to really start thinking about ways to relax my mind and my body. All right. If you start getting yourself ready for bed at 9 hours before your wake up, there's a good chance you could fall asleep within 2 hours from there. I'm saying this, right? Because if it takes you 2 hours to fall asleep and you fall asleep at 11, you wake up at 6. You get 7 hours. Is it ideal? No. But for some of us, that's a huge bump, right? I've talked to people that get 4.5, 5.5 hours of sleep. If we could get ourselves to 7, great. And then eventually, the more we practice the sleep habits and these sleep routines, it's not going to take us 2 hours to fall asleep. We still start shutdown mode at 9, but maybe I fall asleep at 10:30, and that 7 hours of sleep becomes 7.5. And I already talked about that that effect that you have where 30 minutes a night over the course of a week, all right, that time starts to add up. And at the end of the year, you have tons of more time getting some good, hopefully deep, restful sleep, all right? If we're stressed, if there's anxiety, let's focus on sleeping, okay? Number 5, be mindful of the 3 T's, all right? I already talked about it. Our thoughts, our traumas, and our toxins, all right? Shout out to Darren once again. He taught me this. He shared it with me because he learned it from somebody else, man, all right? Try to reduce all 3. Get rid of the negative self-talk. Reduce the amount of toxins you consume. And try to reframe those experiences, right? Don't let the past dictate your future, all right? Some terrible things might have happened to you, right? But we have to figure out a way to start healing, okay? Number 6, be grateful. On February 6th, this is a proclamation here, 2024. I looked outside. My buddy Wesley was coming down for an interview, right, for the podcast. And I was just getting ready, man, running back and forth from the barn to the house. And I looked out there and I looked at our farm and I was like, man, it really is beautiful. In the past, I looked around and I just saw nothing but work, 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 and more work. But this time I said, you know what? I'm going to try to be grateful. And I shared this with 2 moms at the school, right? And one of them was like so supportive. She was like, that's wonderful. That's so great. And then the other one was like, how's that working for you? And I was like, well, I'm only, now I'm about 10 days in, 11 days in, and I think I'm doing okay at it. But I need a reminder every day. Let's not look around. Let's not see this stuff as work. Let's see this as just a beautiful parcel of land that we have. Now, that article is available on chrisflick.net. It is called Coffee and Coping with Anxiety. Now, chrisflick.net's got it all. It's got the gym stuff. It's got my blog. It has got the podcast stuff up. The videos are there. YouTube channel, like, subscribe, share it. It's on Apple. It is on Google, and it is on Spotify, right? The podcast is out there. You can listen to it in your car. And if you don't feel like listening to me for an hour, you could change the speed, right? You could go from, instead of listening to it at normal speed, you can listen at 1.5 times, all right? That speeds my voice up a little bit and I get to talk a little bit faster. If you do that, you don't have to invest that much time in it, right? If you listen to it at 2 times speed, which you really need to train your ears for, that 1 hour podcast becomes 30 minutes, okay? Listen, like, share. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Adios. Peace, everybody.